We're joined by Trevor Sikkema from Pro Football Focus here at the NFL Combine in Indianapolis. I'm going to start here because I always feel every year we get further and further removed from the college football season. We tend to forget more and more about how these guys performed on the field, and then we get more and more enamored by what they do running in their underwear.
Sure.
So, what's the real balance there between what you see at the Combine and what the film told you?
Yeah, it is funny. There are a handful of players now already in this class where, either they're just not the talk of the town, or I'll see some people with updated rankings, and I go, are we forgetting what happened, a couple of months ago when the games were actually going on? But no, what the Combine, and I do think that the Combine is a valuable event, even from outside of NFL circles. First and foremost, what NFL teams get out of this is they get to meet a lot of these players, right? If they weren't at the Shrine or the Senior Bowl or whatever, you really get to meet them, whether it's formal or informal. They start that process before they really start to get into, who the official visits are going to be. So that's an important, paramount part for the team. The second most important part about the Combine is, of course, the measurables, right? Because you see these guys who might be listed at, 6'3", 205 pounds in his school's website, and actually he's, just over 6'1" and more.
The schools would lie.
185. It does happen. I know it's hard to believe, but then the most important part, kind of what you are referencing, is you want to see how these players win, specifically as athletes. You want to be able to see that in some of the testing events. For example, if you have a wide receiver, he's a vertical stretching wide receiver, somebody that you want to be able to get off the line of scrimmage quickly, get into their top speed very quickly, and be able to burn people down the sideline. Well, then you better be able to run fast, okay? So you want to be able to check that box of athleticism that you see here at the Combine. You also, for example, on the other side of the ball, pass rushers, right? If you see a guy with a great first step, explosive move right out of his stance, and that is how he wins as a pass rusher, well, guess what? I want to see a low 10-yard split time. I want to see you be able to broad jump and vertical jump pretty high and long, because I want to see that explosiveness in your lower half. So what the Combine is all about is it's about checking the boxes that we see on the tape. There's a lot of guys who can look good as athletes in their underwear, like you said. Do they translate that to the football field when they have the pads on? That is really the important part about the Combine and what the actual takeaway should be from these tests.
And the other part of this, and you cover the draft, so you have a good sense of this, there's the rumor mill, the gossip, the information. How much are teams trying to figure out, okay, take the Panthers, you're picking at 8. What's going to happen 1 through 7? Who's likely going to be available? What are our options? How much of that information gathering takes place?
A ton. I mean, we're just at the beginning of the Combine here, and I was standing next to Joe Shane's podium for the New York Giants, the general manager of the New York Giants, and he said up there, like, okay, when it comes to trading up or down, he's like, those conversations really start here. Like, I get to talk with a lot of other GMs, and we just sort of, whether it's serious or maybe just floating something out there, seeing if there's any
disinformation, we see that too.
100%. And like that, those conversations that happen this week are such a tangible part of what will happen when the draft gets kicked off at the end of April. So there's no doubt about it too. Like this week, and a culmination of so much of the NFL world being in the same city, going out to dinner at the same places. Whether it's something that you're meeting somebody formally or maybe informally, whatever. Just these guys talk, and a lot of what they talk. Fans would be, I think, surprised to learn this. Like, sometimes these trades start with just general conversations and throwing something out there and saying, like, what'll it take to move back from number 8? And maybe you get an answer, maybe you don't. But that is also a part of this event that actually holds weight when it comes to what happens at the end of April.
Yeah, look at the Panthers. You got the 8th pick. And a lot of times when you're in the top 10, top 15, what can change the way a draft turns is, will there be another quarterback that sneaks into that group? And, we kind of have a sense, Shedeur Sanders, Cam Ward, they're going to go in the top 10. Mm-hmm. Any buzz yet of a potential third QB kind of moving into that top 10, top 15 realm, because that impacts all the other teams who aren't taking a quarterback?
Well, it feels like if there's going to be one, it feels like Jackson Dart from Ole Miss is the guy to be able to do that. And I haven't heard I haven't heard a lot of buzz from him here in Indianapolis quite yet, but there certainly was after the Senior Bowl. You know, he was at the Senior Bowl. He was one of those quarterbacks there who was looking to separate himself, whether it was Jalen Milroe or Dylan Gabriel or Tyler Shuck or whatever it was. Jackson Dart was right in that mix of guys who could separate themselves into who might be the third quarterback off the board in this class. And when it came to after the event, a lot of what you heard from the national media was that Jackson Dart was this guy who was going to be this huge riser, and we need to think about him potentially as a first-rounder. I don't know if we're going to get to the point where, okay, we're going to be talking about him as a top 15 pick, but crazy things happen all the time with the quarterback position, and it really comes down to two types of teams in this league, the ones that have quarterbacks, the ones that don't. And the ones that don't, the lengths that they will go to even get a quarterback that might not be a finished product, but somebody that they believe that they can have hope in, it knows no bounds, if you will. So I would say if there is a third quarterback, it would be Jackson Dart, but I don't think we're quite there yet to talk about him in the top 50.
I remember when Cam Newton was drafted that year, right around this time, around the Combine, he wasn't being talked about as a number one overall pick. First-round pick, certainly. Mm-hmm. But things changed. Yeah. And then all of a sudden his name moved up and up and up and then went number one to Carolina and, had a great career. The Panthers are expected to go heavy on defense.
Yep.
Draft, free agency. You've graded a lot of these guys. Who are, in your estimation, the bona fide, can't-miss, impact defensive players in this draft?
I think that there are a handful at the very top of the draft. It feels like, certainly if the Carolina Panthers could get Abdul Carter from Penn State, I mean, they would jump for joy. I mean, there might not be they might have to get Usain Bolt out of retirement to run the card in.
Are the Micah Parsons comparisons there?
They're fair.
They're fair.
They really are.
Why?
And I it is fun. I kind of hate using that because people go, all right, same school, same number even, same position. But they are such similar players, including the background of where they came from. Micah Parsons, he was an off-ball linebacker before he became more of an edge rusher. Abdul Carter was more of an off-ball linebacker before this year. He's a first-time, full-time edge rusher, and we saw the athletic ability, how explosive these guys are, even the body type, how they are built, height, weight, just the measurables, the arm length, everything. It feels so similar to Micah Parsons. So I think that the comparisons are easy to make, but also very fair. So Abdul Carter is one of those guys that I think is an absolute stud in this class. Travis Hunter is unbelievable, just as an overall football player. Whether you want to call him a corner or a wide receiver, I think that he should be playing corner at the next level. My comp for him is Champ Bailey, because Champ Bailey, when he was coming out of Georgia, was the same thing. He had games where he started at wide receiver, but started a lot more at the cornerback position. Obviously commits full-time to being a corner in the NFL, and worked out pretty well for him. So I think that he is a stud defensive player in this class. I love Mason Graham as well, the defensive tackle from Michigan. To me, he's a major difference maker. It feels like when I do mocks, he'll go to the Patriots at number 4, to the Jags at number 5. It's not often I get him down to number 8, but to think of him and a fully healthy Derek Brown, I mean, that is a monster interior defensive line duo for the Carolina Panthers. So he is somebody who's on their radar. And then you get some other guys, right, like a James Pierce Jr., a Mike Green, maybe a Michael Williams. You get some other Shamar Stewart, maybe these edge rushers and defensive linemen that I think could make a lot of sense for them, whether it's at 8 or maybe even trading down and feeling like they can get one of those
I'm going to give you a name, and I know the safety position has been devalued by the NFL. It's hard to play that position the way it used to be played with all the rules, especially, hitting above the shoulders and all that. But Malachi Starks.
Yeah. Malachi is – so I just finished his final scouting report that we'll have in the PFF draft guide. And, it's an interesting case. I came away thinking this guy's got too much good tape really as a freshman and a sophomore, and even moments this past year as well where I would not take him in the first round. The thing that holds me back a little bit from drafting him, say, at number 8 overall is – there were some judgment issues from him this past year where he was either just mistiming when the ball was getting there, when he needed to put his foot in the ground and go after and get a receiver, when he was kind of coming downhill, some of those pursuit angles. And it just, I did not expect to see that from him. Now, guys are allowed to have bad years, and I think playing safety is also very difficult. You're operating in so much space where if you have any sort of a misstep, like that's it. So I think consistency at the safety position is even really hard, even for the best players in the NFL. So I try to make sure that I have grace for what is being asked of him at the position, because when you go back to Malachi's freshman and sophomore year, one, he was labeled an athlete recruit coming out of high school. He was somebody who had an extensive track background to him. He played wide receiver. He played defensive back. He played everything when he was in high school. And when he got to Georgia, think about when he got to Georgia. This is like 2021, 2022. This is the peak of Georgia's defense when they're going after national titles.
Right. All those guys that are on Philly right now.
That's true. This dude started as a true freshman in a Kirby Smart defense. Kirby played defensive back. So it's like that is like the highest honor, to play with those veterans in a national championship caliber defense.
You're talking
for 2
a lot
years.
of people into Malachi Starks right now.
And that's the thing, is like, was 2024 disappointing? Yes. But I think it was just disappointing given what I know the standard that Malachi Starks has set already. So he's somebody that you're drafting in the first round, in my opinion, no matter what, because of what he could play as a free safety, a strong safety in the slot. But there is, you just have to be okay with what you saw in 2024 and believe, hey, you know what? Sometimes you just have down years. He'll be better for it moving forward.
With the edge rusher class, we keep hearing the depth of that class. A guy like James Pierce out of Tennessee, at the start of the season, he was talked about as a potential 1-1. Now, maybe late first round, maybe even a second round pick. How deep is this edge rusher class?
Extremely. I think that the defensive line group is the best in this draft class. Like, I really do think that when you are looking back at the 2025 NFL Draft, I think it's going to be the team that was really able to have a handful of picks and prioritize whether it's the offenses or defensive trenches, specifically in the defensive line, that's going to come away the true winners of this group. And so you get guys like you mentioned, like a James Pierce Jr., you get the Ohio State guys, Jack Sawyer, JT Tuimoloau, a guy who I love in this class, Donovan Ezeraku from Boston College. I love that dude. I mean, I think that Nick Scorton as well, Shamar Stewart from Texas A&M, I think it's the headlines because of the athlete that he is. But, man, Nick Scorton, I know it was a little bit of a down year for him this past year, but you go back to that Purdue tape, and he was incredible, and that is still in there for him. I think he was playing a little bit heavier than he could at the NFL level. I think he could be a sack master because of how well he used his hands and how much pass rush moves he has. But there's just a lot of defensive linemen, specifically in the edge rush position, that I think are a lot of guys that can be difference makers.
2 names before we let you go. Tet McMillan.
Yep.
If he's available at number 8,
yep,
given what the Panthers still need on defense, and you still have free agency to address some of that, is he a guy, if he's hanging around at 8, where you're going, he's too good to pass up?
Unless Mason Graham or Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter, obviously, as well. Unless those 3 guys are on the board, I think my next pick for them is Tet McMillan.
Really?
It really is. And he's the only guy I would consider for them at number 8. Like, I like Luther Burden. I like Tyler Warren. Like, I think these are really good football players. But for Carolina specifically at number 8, my board for them is, defensive players, obviously, Tet McMillan, and then defense throughout. Like, I don't know how we're not talking about
What's
this
the
guy
comp?
as – it's hard to not have crazy high comps for him. My comp for him is A.J. Green. And A.J. Green was a phenomenal career.
No doubt.
Obviously incredibly productive, an all-pro player. So, production goes into landing spot, some luck, some things that you can't control. But just overall, the game that he has, the height, the length, how strong he is at the catch point despite sort of his body type where you go, maybe he's going to be strong. He is a beast at the catch point. He gives you the spectacular one-handed catches as well. I think he's great at the sideline. He's a hell of a competitor. He'll block for you. So, yeah, the separation percentage is a little bit low, but that's just how he's built as a receiver. What I actually love the most about him that's kind of that plus as a big receiver is he's got the mentality for yards after the catch.
Yeah.
Not every big receiver does. And so you see some other comps like a Mike Evans or a Drake London. I think A.J. Green gave you more after the catch, so that's why I lean more towards that type of a receiver. But it is hard to not think of these all-pro type of players given how Tet is built and the skill that he has.
The last one, and this is a guy that I saw twice in person, and he went bonkers both times. Looking at a mid-round pick, Panthers need a little depth behind Chuba Hubbard. Cam Scatterbo. I'll give you my take real quick.
Yep.
It's some of the best contact balance
Yep.
and center of gravity I've ever seen, and he can catch the football.
So it is funny that we started off this interview talking about combine guys, and I said in my answer, hey, sometimes we get away from the college football season, and these guys that they start they're lower on rankings, and they start dropping them on rankings. The guy that I think about when I give you that answer is Cam Scatterbo. How short-term memory do we have to have? This dude was unbelievable, and I get it. He's not going to be the fastest 40-yard dash guy.
No.
He's not going to have the quickest agility. He's not going to jump the highest or the longest in the broad jump. I understand that that's going to be the case. At the running back position, I almost value mentality and contact balance and power more than all of those things. People get way too obsessed with hitting the home run as a running back.
You don't see that in the NFL.
It's just
how many guys do that?
So few. Not even how many guys can do it. The opportunity that you have to do it requires defenses to fail in ways that just does not happen at the NFL level.
No, you don't see it.
Give me the guy that takes a 3.5 yards per carry average and gets it closer to a 5.0 yards per carry average. Give me that guy every single time, and that's Cam Scatterbo. He'll run, he'll pass, he'll catch out of the backfield. I think this dude's an absolute stud. So, to me, I think if you got him in the mid-rounds, third, fourth round, I don't know how we'd get to that point, but, that's a hell of a football player.
I saw him in the Peach Bowl and did that game on radio, and I just remember going, oh, my gosh, against a team full of NFL prospects on defense in Texas.
Yep.
He put Arizona State on his back, and they almost won that game.
And everybody knew he was getting the ball, too.
Everybody knew.
It was a lot like, Ashton Genty still somehow rushing for over 100 yards against Penn State when they had nothing else. Those two do. Again, give me that sort of mentality of a play. He's a little bit bigger, but, that mentality reminds me of what Kyron Williams is for the Los Angeles Rams.
Great call.
They lean on him so much. His contact balance is phenomenal. The determination that Kyron Williams has, the pass protecting ability that Kyron Williams has, he is a little bit bigger than Kyron is, but that's the type of player that I think he is.
Scatterbo. Trevor Sikkema, thank you.
Appreciate it, Anish. Anytime.